Hey everybody, welcome back to From the Mechanics Bench. Really excited about my guest this week. I'm talking with Sean Kelly. I don't want to tell too much of his story, but he has been around the block with all types of cycling, from road, mountain biking, probably some gravel in there, I'm assuming. He's done everything from racing pro within Canada. He is mechanicked and wrenched around the world. He's been to the Olympics. There's all sorts of amazing tales. And most recently, he has started a big mountain bike program in Valemount, where he is currently a teacher and really helping to get some youth into that. So I'll kind of let him tell his story, but really excited. And thank you very much for coming on, Sean.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me. Just to clarify, I was a mechanic at the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, I did think about that after I said it. I was like,
Okay.
it might be a little misleading. We'll
I
clarify.
was I was not I
Yeah.
was not part of the big show. I was in the background.
Well,
Yeah.
hence the show saying From the Mechanics Bench, right?
There we go.
These are the
Beauty.
important people. Yeah. Yeah. So with that, let's just get right into it there, Sean. Like, what got you into riding? I know you said around 12, 13. How did you get into it? What did it mean to you early on? And where did the
Yeah,
story start?
for sure. I think like a lot of people who love riding bikes and started when they were kids, I was fortunate to have my parents were pretty active, and my dad was like a lifetime bike commuter.
Oh,
He was
cool.
also a teacher and had a reputation of like being the guy that rode his bike to school in the winter and through snow and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So he really encouraged me to bike and just get out with him. And as I kind of got more into it, um, just finding my way to bike races and just getting more involved in that. And
And this was all in Ontario?
this was in Ontario, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we were, the O Cup scene there was pretty healthy, in the early 90s, early to mid 90s,
Yep.
and just a great scene. And I remember going to a lot of those races, and most of the time I would end up breaking a equipment or crashing
Something.
out, or I
Yeah.
wasn't very good. And then eventually I found myself drawn into the road scene, and just sort of fell in love with that scene. There was less injury. Well, maybe not less
Yeah, I was gonna
injuries,
say,
but
yeah. Maybe slightly
it,
less often, but more
and less
horrendous
often,
when they
but
happen.
more
Yeah.
horrific indeed. So yeah, I was just racing bikes and loving racing bikes, and did that for quite a while and got more and more into the road, and got hooked up with the jet fuel crew out of Toronto, and got to travel with them a ton, and just ride with a lot of really great people. And eventually life, school, all those things,
Yep.
ups and downs, away from riding bikes for a while, and got back into riding and sharing that with, like, helping out with different camps that were being run by the Ontario Cycling Association, and just really fell in love with working with kids and sharing passion for sport.
Awesome.
And through that, it kind of motivated me to pursue a teaching degree. I was really hesitant to do that because both
Yep.
my parents had been teachers, and so I didn't
Yeah.
want to, do that stereotypical follow your parents' footsteps. But I did, and when I graduated from teachers college, there was no jobs in Ontario, and I was really lucky. I had been doing a lot of different projects, and so I got right into coaching or coaching full time with Ontario Cycling, and ended up doing that for quite a while. And in that time, I was coming from a really strong road background,
Yep.
and as I was coaching, taking kids to mountain bike races, feeling a little
Yeah.
out of my element, um, I put a lot of work into getting mentors and learning everything I could about mountain biking and doing it better, and doing it, just figuring out how to do it better. Because there at the time, that there wasn't a ton. There was lots of great coaches around and lots of
Yep.
coaches doing good technical work and whatnot, but I didn't have that skill. And so I was really fortunate to have the support of the staff at Ontario Cycling to help me go out and find some of those resources. And I got to spend time with Andrew Chandro
Yeah.
and the guys, some of the other really great instructing crew out on the West Coast, and
Yeah.
that,
Totally.
like, really started to transform my appreciation of the sport, and my experience in the sport, and
Yeah.
my ability to teach and coach and work with kids. And um, just as my riding progressed and my coaching progressed, I just was loving the sport more and more, and it just became my primary happy place.
Yeah. Everything.
And so
And was
um,
that like, were you, because you also worked with the national team? So did Ontario cycling come first and then bled into the national team, or was that like concurrent at the same?
Yeah. So I was wrenching a bunch before I was coaching full time. And
Okay.
so, yeah, sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't really follow my own timeline, but when I was done racing, I'd sort of finished up with school and was doing a whole bunch of wrenching first.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got to just travel a ton with the national team, wrenching and working on bikes and traveling the world with them. And whether that was, hanging out in Belgium and
Yeah.
or like you said, I got to go to the London Olympics and support all the fantastic athletes that were there. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a
super
whole
cool
different level of
experience.
stress, eh? Like when you are
Yeah,
working with athletes behind the scenes and you're working in those
yeah,
like moments where seconds count and you're trying to find the right
yeah,
things. And then just the trust, right, that develops between a mechanic and an athlete in terms of like, I'm giving you this product and
yeah,
you know that I've done everything in my power to make sure it's like not only safe, but it's also going to be the fastest it's going to be. It's
yeah.
going to work. It's going to do what you need it to do. It's a pretty cool experience that I don't think gets talked about, as much as not necessarily that it should, but then it's just interesting when you get the feedback or the
Mm-hmm.
mechanic gets the feedback from the athlete in that
Mm-hmm.
moment of like that thank you and that pump and that like when things just
Yeah,
went well. There's very few things that can like replicate that type of feeling.
indeed. And when you have an athlete that comes in and says like, I I don't know what you did, but my
Yeah,
bike has never worked like that. That
yeah,
was
totally.
that like you hit the nail on the head. That's
It's pretty
a
wild.
special, yeah. Yeah, indeed.
And it's already almost like an educational piece there too, right? Like it sounds like you've been doing teaching in some form or another, like almost your entire career, which is pretty cool, right? And it's like even there, you're helping to like educate whether it's athletes on what is possible or what's not, or what the best way
Mhm.
forward is, or when they have questions about stuff, and then bleeding that all the way through to like your current, position is a
Yeah,
pretty strong
totally.
thread through the life.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I had said both my parents were teachers, and
Yeah,
I think I tried really hard to resist that
yeah.
trend, but yeah, I guess it was just ingrained too deeply. So
I mean, it
yeah,
is what it is too, right? And it's like there's people that are born to do a lot of that stuff, right? Like you have people that
yeah,
are not only like passionate about it, but that are driven to do it and then do it well naturally. And even the fact that then you're out searching for people to help make you better as a coach, you're learning because there's a
mhm,
lot of coaches that we see, whether it's hockey, soccer, whatever, they did it as a
mhm.
kid or as a adult or at a high level in college or whatever, and then automatically assume that makes you a great coach,
Right.
which couldn't be further, from the truth, right?
Yeah,
So
agreed,
that's
agreed.
pretty special, that you work through there. So now we've kind of done the wrenching thing. You've got all these experiences. You were racing at a really high level. You're now working with Cycling Ontario or
Hmm.
Ontario Cycling, however that is,
Yeah,
and and you're coaching full time for them, and that's a pretty big
yeah.
chunk of time for you, right?
Yeah, I was with Ontario, I think 7 or 8 years maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, running programs, everything from, short summer camps for 12, 13-year olds to taking kids to Canada Summer Games and
yeah,
really trying to get those provincial athletes into the national team program and giving them a launching pad, doing the best job we could to give them
yeah,
opportunities to train and race and learn and just hone their craft and skills. Everything from, yeah, wrenching on their own bikes, making sure their equipment was dialed, making sure their sleep and nutrition was dialed, their training, all those
yeah,
pieces. And I got to work with, we had there's the Canadian Sport Institute, and I got to work with some amazing staff there as well in terms of physiologists, strength and conditioning coaches, just the whole gamut of amazing people that it can take to help really build well-rounded athletes that can compete at an international level for sure.
totally. And did you feel in that like time and place? How do you feel Canada federally does in terms of like funding those programs? Was that all provincially funded? Was there any funding available, or was this like we're also out selling cookies, to try to make it all go? Like, what was
Yeah,
that side like?
for sure. I think that all of the Canadian Sport Institute is a federally funded program from
Yeah,
what I understand mostly. And we had like the provincial sport organization had really good tie-ins with them in Ontario and in Alberta when I was working in Alberta as well. And yeah, quite well funded.
yeah,
We were able to, I think, achieve a lot and accomplish a lot. And we really tried to stretch our dollars.
yeah,
I felt like in Ontario, we were able to offer quite a large number of athletes really good quality programming. And we would try to we'd look at the whole landscape and try to identify, okay, where, if we have, X number of dollars, where can we put those to stretch it the furthest, to give the athletes the extra bump that they need? Do they need more winter training? Do they need more like miles in the legs off season? So we really tried to maximize that. And I really tried hard to develop good relationships with the other private coaches and individual coaches that were working with athletes. And then as the provincial coach, try to support all those programs across the province, so we could, try to bring everybody up together, or just raise everybody to the best ability that they could. It's a tough game. With finances and money. You see a lot of athletes some of them have access to unlimited funding almost, if they are, and then others are working extra jobs to pay for bikes and race entries, and to try to give an
equal opportunity to start.
Equal is not always equitable, right?
Yeah, totally.
So it was always really challenging. Sometimes, you'd see an athlete that just showed so much potential and promise, but they had to work 2 jobs, and they couldn't get away from school. And then you had athletes that, the whole.
Then you got an athlete that's talking about like doing a taper week, before or whatever, and I'm going to rest, and it's like I'm still working 14 hours a day just to try to get to a race, right? And I definitely saw that in my racing experience, racing downhill, when I was really, really involved with it. And it was hard to not be, kind of bitter at the time, when you're like, I'm closing my shop early to try to get to this race. I'm driving all night. I'm getting there for 1 day of practice. You get there and people have been there for 4 days, and they're, but it is tough. I mean, I've also seen the flip side of that coin, where sometimes the mental strength in those individuals can sometimes, and not always for sure, be lacking, because the struggle hasn't been as hard. And that sometimes that you can see that happen. But then you also, I mean, what's the saying, right? Like, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I think you saw it to a certain extent, but then it is hard. And mountain biking, road biking isn't cheap, right? Like it's hard to do if you don't have the resources to do it. So it's pretty cool to again see someone like yourself that's been as dedicated as you have been to giving as many people, a chance to experience that as possible.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say so go ahead, Dave.
No, you're up. Yeah.
I think I lost my train of thought now.
I was going to say, like, was that kind of the biggest hurdle that you feel like you faced in terms of those things? Like, was it an opportunity type thing, or was it the classic stuff? Like, it's just hard also, technically, physically, mentally, to be an incredible mountain bike racer. Like,
you really see, I feel like over the years I saw such a good cross section of athletes, and the best athletes had a good balance of everything. They had pretty supportive parents. They had it's this almost like magic mixture, right? They had a social group that also rode bikes, so that was their outlet, right? They had somebody to give them some guidance. There's a crew that was really prevalent kind of out of Barrie, the whole Barrie area. They were just like, there was one national championships. I remember one year, and the national cross country championships. And I think they won like 15 out of 20 total medals out of this small training group. Right. And, all the props to Kevin, the coach that was kind of running most of that group. And they just have like an amazing, they had all the pieces of the puzzle kind of to make it work. But then you get the kids that were outside of that bubble, and it's hard if you're whether you're missing any piece, whether you're missing some of that social piece, or you're missing the finances, or you're missing the training group, or you're missing those pieces. How my goal as a provincial coach was really to like, okay, how can we either coordinate people, get people together, get them working together, because it was more about winning O Cups or local races. We wanted to get beyond that, and even working as a provincial coach and working with other provincial sport organizations, trying to get our athletes together, to train together, to work together, to ride together, to become friends, and to share the knowledge and experience that they had. I worked really hard to, work with some of the great coaches out of Cycling BC or Cycling Nova Scotia or Saskatchewan, Alberta. Like, it was I think at the beginning, hard to break through some of those barriers with some of the other PSOs because it felt competitive. You know, you go to
Yeah,
national
totally.
championships
Yeah,
and you
you're all
want to
trying to
beat
beat
each
each
other.
other.
And then to try and shift gears and be like, okay, but we're actually now going to go train for a week together was, I think, one of my best accomplishments as a
Cool.
provincial coach. And,
Yeah.
you know, I was able to sort of at the end of my time with, I think it was with Alberta, to run some interprovincial training camps down in the States in the off season and some of
Yeah.
those pieces. And it was like a lot of hard work to coordinate that many more
Yeah.
people, but so worth it in terms of like the sharing of knowledge and the sharing of experience and building of like a national community of riders rather than just like those sort of provincial silos that we often fell into.
Well, it's really interesting that you say that because even now you look at someone like Valley Hole, right, who's crushing in this women's,
Right.
DH, like and one of her main cited reasons out of her interview from switching from this Trek team back to YT was the lack of training camps and team time in the off season together, like that she cited as such a huge piece of her social, of her drive of, and that YT was providing those things. And it's so interesting. So it's like, this isn't a small thing. This is like a piece of the puzzle that needs to exist to every level of the sport, right, and move up, which is pretty cool. When did you ever personally have the drive to mountain bike race while you were coaching? Was that ever like a thing that you wanted to get into, or was that like kind of like
I would jump into races here and there for sure. Like racing is such an integral core part of my being. And as a coach, like I prided myself on being a coach that could be out there with the athletes on the bike, whether I was on the road or on the trail. And so I made sure I was fit. And so when I was coaching, I was pretty fit. I could go out and do big days.
You're still pretty fit now. I mean, I've heard all the stories that you're ripping people's legs off. So
I mean, I love to ride and I love to race, whether, it's jumping in a local enduro or a cross country or an endurance race of some sort, whatever it is. I love getting out there and just seeing how hard I can push myself. For sure.
It was really interesting. I worked with a young called the Downhill, the DH Union out of Kamloops DH Union, which was a bunch of young racers last year racing downhill for the first time. And we had a ton of successes. It was really fun. A lot of that social aspect that you were talking about, training, nutrition, all of that was a kind of a wake-up call for some of them. And quickly you could see the people that were like, okay, this is cool. And you were like, okay, this is a lot of work. I don't necessarily want to do this. But another thing that I've run into now, and I feel like is a lot bigger than when I was racing, is this idea too. We had a lot of kids that would get stuck on this idea of like, I don't have the newest shock. I don't have the newest fork. I don't have the newest bike. Like I cannot compete. And I personally find that incredibly wrong. I just don't think it's correct. Did you find in your experiences that was a part of it? Like, did you find that the marketing machine sometimes is a little stronger than it needs to be in terms of the main goal of getting people out and enjoying their bikes?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's like we could all use some more simplification in our life, whether that's with sport or I don't know what else I could apply it to right now. Probably a lot of things, but totally, for sure. The athletes that I found that had a lot of really good success, wouldn't worry quite as much. They wouldn't let those details get in their way. They knew that they had to perform and they could get their head wrapped around it and not get stuck in the weeds of, how many spokes or what kind of rims they had or what kind of shock tune they had, going into an event. Good example. I remember Peter DeSera, he was a silver world champion, silver at the junior world championships, an incredible athlete. And just one of those like really mentally tough. And I remember talking to him about his bike and he's like, he went meticulously through it, found the lightest component for the best price. It was all like, I think mostly XT parts but just like didn't have to be XTR or the best top of the line stuff or the lightest, but he just made sure it was like, he kind of did an analysis, this is his engineering brain working, to make sure that like it was dialed and it would work. And I think that, that's such a great example of somebody who like just thought it through and didn't worry about the best, but just made sure it worked and had a good simple approach.
Well, the other, I think, interesting thing about that is it teaches, I think, some life skills that are then significantly more transferable to the rest of your life. If you're worrying about, like, you can't control necessarily the level of product you're going to have, if you have any support, even as a professional athlete. This is something I talk about with a lot of professional athlete, friends and stuff all the time now, is like, if they have a sponsor who's like, this is the shock you're riding, and they don't necessarily love it, like there comes a point where you can't control that stuff, but what you can control is your fitness, your sleep, your attitude towards it, like going out to go and ride and race and have fun and all those things. And I think that's something that we kind of get stuck in and we miss a little bit. And I see it in the shop here, all the time, right? People that are like almost sad or angry to go ride their bike because they don't have like what they think is the right thing on it. And it kind of like, it almost breaks your heart sometimes, right? You're like, man, you're good. Your bike can move. It's got brakes that will stop you. Like, go and ride, have fun first. Worry about the rest of it.
Indeed. I feel like it's such a juxtaposition. Like, I came from that world where, so many of the athletes I worked with were very preoccupied with the equipment they had. And now being here in Valemount and building this youth mountain bike program that I've got started, I was really fortunate to get some grants, and, the shop helped us out with getting a great deal with Kona, and we got some relatively basic bikes, but they have a simple air shock.
Totally.
They work well, and the kids here are so pumped to ride them. It's been such a fun experience seeing kids so jazzed on, relatively entry level bikes, but being like, it blows their mind that these bikes can do what they can do. And it's so fun to see that.
Well, it is incredible. Every time we're up there and just seeing the crew ride by, and like seeing and Charles, our mechanic in Valemount, has spent some time, with you guys out at the clinics in the days. And it's like, his stories are just he comes back smiling. Like, how can you not be happy when you see how pumped these people are to go and do something that we all love? I do have a couple questions just in terms of if there's somebody else out there that's interested in starting, because I think the program that you're running there in Valemount is incredibly special. I think it's incredibly powerful. I think it teaches a lot of amazing things. You said you did get some grants and whatnot. Were those processes that you had to go through individually, as a teacher? Do you go through those as a school? Like, if someone in some school, wherever, is looking to start something like this, what would be the first step to kind of looking down that road?
Getting your principal's support.
Okay. Step one.
I'm really lucky here that our principal is amazing, and he's really supportive of teachers trying to take on extra projects and support kids. So he was exceptionally supportive, which was amazing. And then, we're also lucky here. We're part of the Columbia Basin, and the Columbia Basin Trust is an organization that, they draw power from the waterways that we're on. And but they put money back into the community, and so that's where I was able to go through a Columbia Basin grant to access some funds to buy some bikes. I bought 15 bikes and some helmets and some supplies to sort of support those bikes to keep them running for a couple of years. And but I mean, I didn't start with that, right? I started with just getting kids out who had bikes, and the riding here is some of the best I've ever experienced, around the world.
Incredible.
Like, it's really special riding here. And I found, working at the high school, when I took the job, I was like, oh man, this school is going to be like full of kids who just love to ride and shred. And I was surprised that there weren't that many. And we're a small town, 12,000 people, 1,200 people. It used to be a mill town. The mill's closed. There's not a ton of industry here. And it's a town that has certainly gone through some economic challenges. And, we rely on a lot of tourism now. But it's not like some of the mountain towns where, like Whistler or some of the other places that are very affluent communities. And so, it's amazing. You come into the school on any given day during the spring or summer or fall, and there's a lineup of bikes outside. Not a single one of them is locked up. And they'll range from, old beaters, 15-year-old Konas to, there's a couple of nice mountain bikes that are lined up out there, and none of them have locks on them. So that's just like, first off, when I walked in, I was like, what is going on here? Like,
no kidding, eh?
But then, there just weren't too many kids riding the mountain bike or riding the bike park as I expected. So I just started to try to get a sense of, okay, how many kids want to go out? How many want to learn? And just go through some basic coaching and try to progress their skills. And I had a good, like, small crew going out, and took a couple kids to like mountain bike provincials, like the high school mountain bike provincial championships. They raced a little enduro, raced a little cross country. And so we got some momentum there, and I just really saw the need for bikes. It's such a barrier to entry. And so, that's where that piece came in, and we got some grants, and that program is now up and running. And over the summer, I spent half my summer running some free clinics for the kids. We had 2-week camps basically. And I just did a ton of riding with them, and just tried to keep it as fun as possible, whether we were working on jumps or cornering or, all the
basics.
things.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, and that leads us into this next thing, because it seems like your work is never done, because you're now in the middle of getting the big pump track project going. Or tell us where it's at. How did that one start? How does it tie in? Does it tie into the school program? Yeah, I mean, let's just hear kind of some of that stuff.
We've got Project Pump It Up that we've started. When I say we, it was a conversation between my wife and I that sort of, I think, the Valemount, the riding community here has wanted a pump track for long before, since I've been here, for sure.
Totally.
And I think that we just sort of hit the right timing, and we were lucky with some of that. We got a bit of a committee together under VARDA, which is the Valemount Area Recreational Development Association. They're a great organization that have done, like, they basically built the bike park.
Totally. I'm really excited to talk to Curtis actually in a couple of conversations here, which will bring us back to that, which will be good. But
so under VARDA, we've got this committee, and we've, been fundraising for some, some of our seed money to get some design work done by Velo Solutions. So we've got a big chunk of property that's village owned, that has been allocated for us to use and build on. So we've got our land is committed. We were starting to get dollars rolling in. And so we're at the design phase now. So I'm just waiting to hear back from the Velo Solutions crew on the design. So they've got the site, they've got all the parameters they need. And we've talked sort of about, as a committee, we had a good meeting with them recently about sort of what we're looking for in the bike park, or in the pump track / skills park that we're looking to build here. And so now we're at the point of waiting for that design, so we can start going after some bigger grants.
That's super rad. And is that going to then be, I mean, I guess it gives you a place to bring the school program as another place to go ride. But it's its own entity, right? It's not tied into to the teaching bike program at all. It's its own thing.
It's its own thing for sure. I mean, the need for it is tremendous. We being in the valley, just accessing riding, that's you were getting somewhere where you can develop skill.
Totally.
Like you got to go up the mountain, and it's a grind, right?
I mean, even that little skills park at the bottom, for young kids that parents are working or whatever, like, it's still a long way to ride to get to there. It gets used a ton, that little skills park, but it's not the best part of the bike park, either, right? So it's like there's definitely a huge need to have that kind of learning ground there, which I think is really exciting to go in. I think you're going to see a massive amount of use through it, which is
and just everyone who's ridden a pump track knows how much fun they are. And you don't need a $4,000 mountain bike to ride it, right? Like the old BMXs or whatever kind of bikes are laying around, you'll go down to the pump track and have a rad time. So I'm
learn a lot of skills.
That.
Which is really cool. Are there plans for that to incorporate dirt jumps and stuff as well? Or is that a multi-stage type thing? What's your kind of end vision for the entire, area there?
So we've got about 3 acres that we are sort of allocated to us. So it's a big chunk. So we can certainly, there's potential for all that to come, but I think that, we're focused right now on building the pump track, getting that momentum going. We're being so isolated here in Valemount, getting asphalt here is exceptionally expensive. This build is going to be more than it would be pretty much anywhere else. So we're trying to get the first piece in place, pump track. And that'll look like our goal as the pump track committee is we're looking to have a competition ready pump track. So something that's large that you can really progress on, with a kiddie track next to it. And cool. Then in the future, we're hoping that we can incorporate some jump lines and more features for
Totally.
sure that we can. But
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
Velo
in time,
Solutions puts together a good product too.
mhm,
You know, I've been lucky enough to ride on a few of those pump tracks, and there's
yeah.
even within the pump track itself, there's lots of lines going on, which is always really
Mhm.
exciting. If there, you know, I do have quite a few listeners that are also hailing from Alberta, from BC. We got a lot of people that come to Valemount and enjoy the bike park, you know, all summer long. And if you haven't been, you should definitely come to Valemount and check it out.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing. Is there any way for those people to help with fundraising, like for the pump track project? If there's people that want to get involved, how would they go about doing that?
For sure. Well, just currently, the only sort of online donations we have right now are through the Varda webpage.
Okay.
So you can donate through the Varda webpage. On February 9th, we've got another fundraiser happening.
Yeah.
We've got a video night here at the school. We're featuring the engine inside
Oh,
the
cool.
from Anthill.
Yeah.
So we're excited to play air that. We're going to have some auction items. We're going to play a few shorts. It'll be a good night. And that night we're also going to launch, hopefully, or we're going to launch a like a Kickstarter GoFundMe campaign. We're just ironing out those details, and so people can hopefully after that point donate online.
Cool.
And then we're also looking to have a with the local fire department doing a fundraiser in conjunction with them to raffle off a transition repeater PT. So we're just in the process also of like getting that all together and releasing that. So working with an online ticket sales to do that that raffle.
And do donations to Varda as a whole now come through to you, or is it its own thing that they can find on the Varda website, but it's for its own project Pump It Up or whatever is its thing?
So if you do a Varda donation, you can just put in the notes like, oh, can this like be directed towards Project Pump It Up? So
very cool.
Varda is the not-for-profit that we're operating under, or that this committee is operating under, and Varda, they've had a long history of successful builds, grants, and they're a great organization to be working with. And I feel really fortunate that we've been able to partner with them on this.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool to see that whole scene. I mean, I was coming to Valemount back when I had my shop in North Van, you know, kind of once a summer just to do some repairs for the neighborhood. And Curtis and I, and then we're talking about trying to start a bike shop there and what would we need to do to support. And it's been, I mean, I remember ground being broken and stuff on the bike park, and like just what it was to where it is now it's absolutely incredible. Like it's such an incredible place to be and to ride. We only have a couple minutes left here, Sean. Is there any like things that any other kind of topics you wanted to touch on, or anything that you think is really important? I think for me, if I had one more question, it would just be like, what do you feel? Obviously, you're very passionate about riding. You're very passionate about it in all its facets, from mountain to road. You're teaching, you're doing all this stuff with youth, which I find very inspiring. What is it that is the lesson to be learned from riding? Like, what's the thing? What's the core that needs to be or should be passed on? Like, what does mountain biking give the world that makes it better?
That's a great question.
Big question.
So much. I feel like for me, what motivates me, you know, I love what my passion is to see kids being healthy and active. You know, like personally, I struggled with mental health for a lot of years, and coming back to the bike was always like my saving grace. And I find that mountain biking, it's such a place of you know, it can be a social place. It can be a place of solitude, but it's a place of exercise, of meditation. You know, you can go you go ride a trail, and you just have to be so focused on that trail that everything else goes away, right? And it's just part of a healthy, balanced lifestyle. And I find sharing that with kids, with anybody, whether they're kids or adults or seniors, even like, just getting out and starting and finding a passion for a sport that is just going to get you healthier physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's just the greatest gift. You know, getting up into the bike park and pedaling up Monday Grind here, you know, our climb trail, you get to the top and you're just like looking over this incredible valley and take a break. It's just I can't describe anything better unless you're doing it on skis. You know, this week I took a couple of my outdoor ed kids and we went up to the top of the mountain ski touring and split boarding, and then we shredded down, and it was unbelievable. And I was saying to my students that, you know, the only thing better than this is to do it in the summer. And in
Yeah,
the summer, the
totally.
only thing better than that is to do it in the winter.
Yeah, and
And
vice versa. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like, getting out, being active. And again, whether that's alone or with others, it's
Yeah.
just such a special thing. And I feel
And that,
fortunate that I've landed here in this place that's just like my ideal scenario, where
yeah,
I've been able to start a program for youth that haven't traditionally had access to sport, even though it's in
yeah,
their backyard. And so yeah,
yeah,
sharing
it's really
sharing those
special.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, and I found for me, I mean, I think a lot of people have that similar mental health story, especially in today's world. I think that that happens a lot, and I also found the confidence building piece around having something that was challenging,
Mhm.
that but that I could go back to and I could return to again and again and again, like some of.
Yeah.
And then you accomplish something, whether it's a climb, whether it's a stunt, whether like there's so many little things. It can be dropping off a curb. It can be like it doesn't need to be these big, huge, massive features, right? And then that feeling of like I did this and I worked hard for this and now I have it. And it's like that then is transferable to so many other aspects of my life, as well, which I think is really important. But yeah, I mean, it's really, really special what you're doing there. And I think
Thanks.
that removing those barriers is just so key. And I
Mhm.
think that we see it in the population. And I've heard nothing but incredible things from a lot of the locals there about like
Oh,
what you're
sweet.
doing, which is awesome. And I know I'm inspired every time I get there. So if you are watching this and you are inspired, definitely reach out to me if you need help in terms of figuring out where to go or how to get change started. There's lots of resources out there for people to start programs like this
Mhm.
and to do what you can. And even if it's just helping in your backyard, even if it's helping your neighbor, whatever it is, I think it's definitely worth doing. So
Yeah,
um,
I've had a number of people, like other teachers in BC, reach out to me, ask me about how to get programs started, and I'm always more than happy to share the
awesome.
resources that I have and to get anything started going. I've got a lot of provincial years of provincial team planning and
Yeah.
experience, and happy to share all that stuff, whether it's useful or not. But
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, I think that's really incredible, and thank you for that. Like, if anyone does want to reach out, you can definitely either let me know in the comments, or you can reach out to me personally, and I can always put together put you guys in contact if needed. But I just really wanted to say thanks for taking the time to talk to me today. It's a conversation I've been looking forward to having for quite a while, actually.
Sweet.
Because every time I'm there, I'm just like floored with what the community as a whole in Valemount has done in terms of embracing riding
Mm-hmm.
and growing it and making the scene just such a healthy and happy place to be. But then,
Mm-hmm.
especially your part in that program in terms of the work specifically you're doing with the young kids has been something really special to watch. So thank you for letting me dig
Thanks.
into it a little bit and into your
Yeah.
background and to hear all this stuff. I'm sure we'll get into some more details over a beer or two, one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. We're
But until then, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
okay.
Yeah, and everybody, I will see you next episode. Thanks for tuning in.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Dave.
See you, buddy.
See ya.